With Caroline, I couldn't and I wouldn't, but with Berlin, I can and I will cut her hair. As you can see, she's got a beautiful long blonde hair, which she's had for a long time. This has been coloured at the Weller Studio in London by Sue. We'll talk about the colour later. It's a big decision for any girl to go for a major change and a major restyle, and I've always thought as a hairdresser it's a big decision for a hairdresser too. It's not something I would take lightly, and I do believe that she's going to look great with this, or I wouldn't do it, just like I wouldn't do it for Caroline. Not only are we working with dry hair, we're also applying a lot of different concepts in terms of how we use the scissors and how we cut the scissors. During the course of the videotapes, you'll hear me referring to a clock face. So, for example, if I say to you 12 o'clock on a clock face, if I cut the hair at the angle of 12 o'clock, I'm not really going to cut much hair. If I cut 11 o'clock or if I cut 1 o'clock, I'm going to create the textures that I need. So, just for your reference, if that's 12 o'clock, that will be 11 o'clock and that will be 1 o'clock, and that will become a lot clearer in the tape. The other major difference is that, you know, we're not applying the rules that we have known in terms of cutting a straight line. All right, you know, more recently hairdressers have been nibbling on the ends and they've been texturizing. Obviously there's slicing, we know all the techniques, but I think this approach to the hair is completely different, because what effectively I'm going to try and cut is what I call feathers. And by cutting at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, that creates the texture that creates the feather. That'll become more apparent when you see me cutting the hair. The other major difference is that traditionally we always work with very small sections to build our graduations when we're working on geometrics. With this system that I'm using and the system that I've developed, it's a complete opposite. The more hair you can cut in one go, the more interest in the texture you're going to create, because we're trying to create that just out of bed, dishevelled, undone, very sexy, messy, modern hairstyle. But I want to try and get it without having to blow dry it and work it afterwards. What effectively I'm trying to do with all the models on all the tapes is to cut that texture in immediately. And the beauty of it is, when you cut it on the dry hair, providing you've created the perfect surface, when you cut into the dry hair, you get an instant result. And for your client, or in my case, my models, they see it and they see it immediately, whereas traditionally, we cut the hair wet and then the client sits there for 20 minutes waiting for it to be blow dried to see if she likes it. And what's happened over the last few years is people have done a wet haircut, blow dried it, then started cutting into it after they've blow dried it, and I've seen people recut the hair. So what I've tried to do is eliminate everything. I've shown, you know, quite a few hairdressers this way of working, and they always kind of say, well, I like to cut it wet first and then do it afterwards. Well, what I'm saying to you here is this is the challenge, because I've got a system that I can pass on to you that you can use and you can learn and you can pass it on to other people, and you're guaranteed to get a result. And it's quite brave and it's quite bold, but it's very exciting, because I think traditionally watching someone do a haircut is like you want to go to sleep. This is instant and you only get one go at it. And there is a system, there is a technique, and there is a thinking, and obviously once we get into it I'll take you through that. So I'm going to give Berlin a huge tranquilizer now, and we're going to start to cut her hair. So we have this beautiful, perfect surface to work on now. Usual rules apply. We're going to just try and take that central section through the back of the hair. Now traditionally, as you know, if this was wet hair, we'd be working on a small section like this. We'd be cutting it on the skin, cutting a nice straight line, like we always did. Maybe checking it 5,000 times before we move on, so that we're happy that it's straight, like that. We all know all this business. As I said earlier, recently people have been nibbling in a bit like this, but it's all too subtle. And it really is too subtle, so we don't want subtle. We want to see what we're doing. So the thinking here, much, much, much bigger sections than you've ever thought of before. And I'm basing this loosely on a graduated bob kind of idea. So the discipline is, you've got this kind of burnished gold. The direction, all the rules apply that we've ever done before. You have to respect the fall of the hair where it grows. in terms of the angle of the curve of the scalp. At no point are you over directing any of these sections, because if I cut it this way, I'm going to get something completely different. If I pull it this way, I'm going to lose so much length, it's going to be frightening. So all the time, just respect where you are in relation to the head shape. And all I'm going to do, and this is really serious stuff now, I'm going to pick this whole thing up and literally coming in at 1 o'clock. In. And drop it. Now, I think Blond just had a heart attack there. I'm not sure. Now, what's happened is, look, immediately I've just created this kind of soft graduation. Are you all right, Blond? This is real, folks. This is real. Okay, now, you can almost kind of immediately see that you've got that kind of graduated bob effect. So if I go to the next section, all right, and one of the keys here is I'm working to the back of the ear. Very important. What I do is all the sections come to the back of the ear. So the back of the haircut literally finishes at the back of the ear there. As you develop this and certain heads of hair, you can actually cut even more hair as you go. So let me just get the next section up and running and I'll show you. So my guide for my eye is the fact that this hair is combed perfectly. Really, really important. And looking underneath to see where I am. So it's my guide. So it's all the old rules applying, making sure I know where I am. And I'm coming in again, 1 o'clock. You need sharp scissors here, obviously. Now, the point with this is what I call the feather. Do you see that? It looks to me like a feather. And when I drop that, because I know that the angle is correct, what I'm creating is this really nice, soft, feathered texture. Now you have the check that you've always had. In this instant, you'll come here to look for the angle, like you always did. So, I'll show you. If I just pull this out here, that's my top corner of weight, which is effectively giving you that little bit of a step. This is obviously where I'm happy. So I can literally just take the top corner out and feather that into that area there. So you're losing the corner, and when it drops, you just get more texture. And obviously you can vary this angle and you can vary the length that you want to go to depending on the effect you're trying to get. But I just want to get this really soft, chewed up, feathery, beautiful texture. So I'll just continue to the back of the ear. Now, I'm going to come to the back ear at this point, and I'm at that section that I was talking about, and effectively this is half of one side cut. So in terms of time and commerciality, there's nothing to touch it. And I dropped my comb, excuse me. In terms of time, it's very, very quick. Now, once again, you have to understand which way you're combing the hair. If I comb it this way, I'm going to create some sort of graduation layering that I don't want. So the head shape is your guide. And it's interesting because all the old hairdressers used to talk about the importance of combing. And it actually applies in this case on the cut. So I'm just looking where I am again, and I'm coming straight in again at 1 o'clock. And you can see it's a real deep cut, and I'm cutting at that part of the blade. Just coming in and dropping it. And you can see that it is that sort of graduated bob kind of feel, but you're getting this lovely, feathery, soft, graded shape. And what I'm going to do is just come in again, back of the ear, and I'll just cross-check that like I did previously, because that will tend to want to be a bit of a step. So by picking it up this way, watch, there's my top corner again. And obviously I'm bearing in relation to the shape that I'm trying to create. I know what I want to take it to. Just come in and create the feather, and you can see the feather. And as that drops, it just gives you that very beautiful kind of classically curved shape, but the texture, you know, I think it's very, very special. And the point with it is that I don't know another way. In fact, I've tried to get this texture in lots of ways, razoring and everything, and I've spent, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour working it and working it and working it, and rather than actually getting it, I actually lose it in the end. So the amazing thing about this for me is that it's so quick. Once again, respecting the angle, where I am on the scalp, coming in, just catching that little piece of length and just cutting that feather. And straight away, we're off and running. Now, you know, that's drastic stuff. There's no question about that. That's drastic stuff, but it's going to be fab. Okay, so I'm just working the hair through. You can see the feeling that's coming. Now, remember we said we were working loosely on a bob idea. Okay, so obviously I'm going to drop this angle back down again now because I kind of want to finish around about the lip area, maybe slightly longer than that. Now, although I've done this on many occasions, I would always rather err on the side of caution than kind of go like a maniac. So, although I know where I am, I'm just going to drop the angle down and it will show you what's possible anyway. So I'm going to be slightly cowardly at this point, right? Look, still working on the 1 o'clock theory, still taking the whole thing out. But what this will do, it'll be quite a messy nothing sort of length through here. It's a bit sort of like bobby and ordinary. And I think we can go shorter than that. So that's what I'm going to do because that's what it needs to do. So I just want to kind of give you the idea of that. Now, remember, the key to this is how you comb it. It's got to be like glass. It's got to be like grain of wood. You can come right in here and really go deep with it because that's what's going to create your textures. And as long as you're true to the angle, then you know it's going to work for you. So, you know, that's kind of the rough feeling of the shape. Now, at this point, I'm just going to pull out the very front line and the very underneath to guarantee that I keep that length for a minute. And pick the whole thing up again, just like I did for the check. All right, and there you can see your weight. And I know whatever I cut into here, I'm not going to interfere with that basic feeling. So I can come in, take that out, my feathers, and all that's going to do, in effect, is just add texture to this haircut. And you can start to see that you are getting a really seriously chewed up, chopped up, modern feel. Now, of course, you can at any point, if you feel like you want to, you can comb it down, you can start to take more bits out, you can fine tune it, you can do what you want. But as an initial shape, as an initial head shape and an initial texture, and it's no excuse, but I mean, we are working here under extraordinary heat with the lights, so it kind of just tends to affect the hairline because people sweat and stuff, so it does affect it slightly. But the general feeling of that and the general shape of that within the time span that we've done it, I mean, you're talking a major restyle in minutes. And the feeling and the texture, and of course I will apply product to it later on, it's very now, and it's very happening, and it's very beautiful. Just checking again for my feathers. And you can see that the depth of the cut really does create this very nice texture, and it doesn't give you any steps, it just gives you texture. And that's all you get is texture. Okay, so in terms of the front length, you can see where I am. Now, I've now got the opportunity to cut shorter and fine-tune all of this. Now, it's a visual exercise because the hair falls as the hair falls. I love all this jagged, soft line. Obviously, you tend to lose some of the detail on fairer hair. Obviously, if it's darker hair, it's much more dramatic. But I'm literally just combing the hair, see where it falls. You can see what happens. You can see, you know, the subtlety and the texture is lovely. I'm just still not using the points. I'm just coming in, just using my eye. There's still a little area in there that I feel could be slightly lighter. So what I'm now doing is picking it up and just feathering into that area. See that? Same principle. Cutting 1 o'clock, Same principle, just playing with it. And it really is instantly there. And I was talking to Blond earlier on, and she said, so as long as I can tuck it behind my ears, well, you can see she can do that. And that works too. So far, so good. Into the other side now. So I'm taking obviously a corresponding section, back of the ear, as always, into there. I mean, if you want to clip it and stuff, you can do if you want to work like that, but I'm confident enough, you know, just to kind of judge it on the section. Take the corresponding section out so that as you pick it up, you've got your guide. Now, this is a crucial cut here because this is going to give you your length on the other side of the hair. There's my guide. So it's all about the combing again of the hair. Remember, you don't want to over-direct it. You want to respect the angle of the head. And it's like an old graduation. You pull it up and you've got your guide. You have to leave enough hair in your hand for you to cut. That's the other thing. You're actually cutting on your fingers here. If you are going to over-direct it, I would tell you, you have to slightly come backwards. Do not under any circumstances go forward, because if you go forward at this point, by the time you get around here, that side will be up here somewhere. So corresponding section, and you're trusting the angle of the head and the amount of hair you're picking out from the other side to give you your guide. And if you're happy, you come in, 1 o'clock, take it out. And obviously try and make sure you cut everything as you go. And straight away, you're in there and you're going to create the same texture. As I explained to you earlier on, the problem I have in this particular instance is that the heat from the light is affecting the blow dry. So although the blow dry was perfect, as I showed you previously, what happens is the heat just starts to climb into the hairline and create these feathers. But I'm going to add product to it afterwards. Or if this would happen to you, but it wouldn't, unless your salon, unless it's August or something, you could add a little bit of just moisture and obviously just dry that smoother if you wanted to. But I'm trying to create this ragged texture, so I actually don't mind all this happening, but I'm going to add to it with more product. So, once again, next section out, back of the ear. And it really is a quick case of the more hair you can cut in one go, the deeper the cut in the bigger the section you get, the more interesting the texture you get. So remember the discipline, the combing, and you know, you pick up as much hair as you can, but if it means you're going to start directing pieces, then take it out, because you want to be in control. The whole key to this system is you have to be in control. So there it is. Nice deep cuts again. Try not to cut your hands. It does happen, I have to tell you that. And there we go. Just building it up. And just looking at the fall. If you want to use event brushes you're working, you can do. Just looking at the fall, making sure that everything's corresponding. I can clean all these bits up afterwards because it's visual. Okay, final section at the back of the ear, coming to the top of the head. So it's that section I was talking to you about earlier. Run across the head. Let the hair fall the way it wants to fall. You could apply the thinking of when you do a chignon, every hair has a direction that it belongs in. So you can apply that thinking to this. Okay, so picking it up. I'm just going to move you around that way a little bit, thank you. Just there. Picking the whole thing up. Just combing it, and don't cut it until you're happy with your combing. Cutting in there. Now, I'm just going to pick up on the check area as well, because that's important. Just picking the whole thing up, checking again, and we should be pretty much spot on, I think. Just picking up there. Get as much in your hands as you can. And there's my top corner, so I can just afford just to blend that in and there's my feather again. Remember, that's my top corner. All that's doing is just adding to the texture of everything as we go. So, as I said to you, I've got to work this section to the back of the ear. It's absolutely vital that I get this section right. Now, what I'm going to do here, now this is your insurance again, and this is you just checking it and making sure it works. I'm just going to take a section this way. It's kind of what I've already cut, but I'm in a better position with my body. It's a bit like putting a perm rod in. I just want to come here, pick this hair up and make sure my angle is correct to the curve, remember? Because by cutting from where I was, you can actually drop the angle down. But as I said to you, that's good news because it means that your insurance policy is working. It means you're not cutting it too short. So there's the feather, there's the combing, and what you're getting is this beautiful graduation all the way through. So you're not creating any holes. So once I'm happy with that, as much as my hand will allow in terms of the width of the section, staying at the back of the ear, remember, very important, working as clean as I can. It will take you a while to get used to combing the dry hair because it's a different set of problems to what you're used to. You do a lot of combing from underneath, which is something you never do when you're cutting the hair wet. Remember, so it's the combing, but that's got to be that beautiful kind of glass-like quality. I can see my feather underneath, so I'm just coming into it, cutting it, dropping it down, and so you're retaining all the graduation that you want. Once again, you can see where the heat is just starting to make the hairline do a little bit of kicking out, but that's fine because that's going to be within the feeling. And then finally, I can just pick this. There's a little piece here that I've missed, so I can just pick that up and check that in with my feather there, because that's where that belongs. Because once again, as long as you're picking your angles up correctly, and your angle is always, the angle to the head, then you really can't go wrong with it. Once again, we're looking all the time just at the texture. Now I'm just going to actually have a look at the back of this just to make sure that I'm happy in terms of the line and the length. And you're feeling in here to make sure that you've got your balance shaped correctly and everything's working. Okay, so that's me to the back of the ear. Quite often with a blonde, and obviously this has got lights through it, it tends to pick up a step. So, and you haven't cut the step, or you think you haven't cut the step. So I just pick it up again and check to the angle. Look, curve of the scalp. I'll pick it up. There's a point in there. Just incorporating that little bit because that's got to go. And that should start to blend it out, you see? There's no step. Okay? All right, now, this is going to get really crucial at this point because we've got... Look at me, doll. We've got a haircut and a haircut. There's a few little pieces in there that can come out. I'm just going to come in and just freehand, trying to use the middle of the blade. And this is where it's visual because you've got to balance it with your eye. It's very important. Now, I'm going to cut half of this in one hit, but it's a really important cut, this one, because I want to obviously get it around here. Now I'm trusting my technique to take me there. This is a key bit of cutting here. Now, your natural caution, I hope, certainly my natural caution, is to maybe drop the angle down, just like I did when I first cut it. So I've got my feather, I'm just going to drop it down slightly longer. I know it's going to be too long. I think I know it's going to be too long. Just checking, yeah. And you can see how visual that is, but that's fine because I'm spot on at the back of the ear, like I thought I would be, but you've got to make sure. So coming back out again, really important, you comb it, you get the head position correct for you, comb beautifully, in there, cutting within the blades, not using the points, cutting within the blades, getting those deep cuts. Just in there, comb beautifully, like glass, like a piece of wood. Just coming in there, dropping it down, checking your length. And once again, I know that I can always cut a bit more out of there, but I can't add it in, so it's really important. So I'm happy. Which now is going to allow me to do this whole bit. Because as I said to you all along, the more you can cut in one go, the better the texture you're going to have. So I'm going to split this into two this way. I'm very happy with the angle of everything, the guide and everything. So combing, discipline, like glass, that grain of wood. Make sure you've got it where you want it. Make sure you can see underneath. Cut it in. Just make sure you're not pulling it forward. If you're dragging it back, you can redo it, but you only get one go. So, just chopping in there. Checking from the front. And then finally, last area to cut. Just checking it. And it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, I've been, hairdressing since I was 15 years of age, and it never ceases to amaze me how, when you change somebody's hair, how much you change the way they look. It's such a responsibility we have. It really is such a responsibility that we have. So, in effect, at this point, it's quite bobby looking, but we want a bit more texture in it. So, come back to the check area, and you'll find a big corner up here now. Watch. See it? All that in there, don't want it. That's what's creating the ordinariness of it. As soon as you start dropping that into the equation, you just get this really modern texture. And I don't know another way, I really don't know another way of getting that chunky, feathered idea. Once again, for insurance, look, take that out. If you're not sure, take that out. You can always cut a bit more afterwards. Take that out so you're guaranteeing your length. And now you can come in here, angle of the head, find the corner of the feather. Look, all that can go, look. And it's scary, because, you're going into places, but you know that the technique allows it to happen. And once again, you see what you're starting to do now is just creating these nice chunky textures. And once you re-add maybe a bit of moisture or a bit of product, it's going to start working for you. So, see what you're doing is you're just taking weight out of the line all the time. Now there's still pieces in there that are too solid, so your eye shows you that, so you just come back to your angle and you find out why and where. So, as drastic and as frightening as it might appear, it doesn't matter because the technique won't let you down. As long as you're true to the technique, like any other way of cutting hair, as long as you're true to the technique, it won't let you down. It only goes wrong if you go wrong. There you go. Now, in actual fact, it's probably slightly longer than Blond was thinking about. I'm talking maybe an inch or something, but I'd always rather give somebody the option, because this is still a major change for her, obviously. I'd still rather give her the option. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to turn around and just have a look at the shape in general now. Just, for you that's watching the haircut, I mean, that's the situation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some product in it. Now, interestingly enough, I could, if I wanted to, pick this top area up to blend it, but I think the whole reason this kind of works is the fact you don't, become a slave to the old technical ways. It's visual, it works, it looks really, really good. I'm going to put some product through it, and then we should really appreciate the texture a bit more. Okay, so it's exciting times now because we've cleared all the stray hairs off of Blond. We've put a top on her and just touched the lips up. Now this for me is the most exciting bit, because In terms of commercial, you could actually see this haircut on a lot of your clients. Any of your clients who's got a bob, and I think the average salon is about 60% of clients have got some form of a bob. This would allow you to, you know, cut hair in a different way and just update the look. Now, in order to make this much younger, because she's a young girl, I'm using Gloss Jelly. There's a choice of products I could use. This is from the High Hair range. Gloss Jelly feels to me like it's probably the best product to create the look that I want to do. So what I'm going to do, now I build this up in bits. So, onto my hand, and I want to literally just cover my whole hand with that. And you almost have to put your hands into the hair moving. I'll show you what I mean, because you don't want to get a situation where you're getting lumps of the product. So once you've got it spread evenly over your hand, you're literally just coming in. And the idea is that we're just going to come and separate this and start to appreciate what we've done in terms of the haircut, what we've done in terms of the texture. So I really kind of want to mess this up. I don't want hairdresser's hands here. I just want hands that the girl might use herself. You're trying to just substitute into the hair, you know, the way that people do their own hair, because we're trying to get rid of, you know, hairdos. So it's just get that product in the hair, work it all the way through, and just start to see what you're getting. And already you'll see that it's just starting to pick up parts of the texture of the haircut, and that really starts to look quite funky and a bit more modern. So I'm just going to put a little bit more in, a little bit more, and just get it through evenly into the hair. So rubbing it in my hands again, and just sort of coming on the underneath with it, because you really don't want to be missing bits out, but you don't want to get it looking like one of those placed numbers, you know, like a bit of a hairstyle out of a magazine. You just, you know, you don't want it to look like a hairdo, so you're just literally putting that in, trying to get it evenly through the hair. So you just start to get that slightly destroyed, you know, unkempt, see your haircut. And, you know, I've been talking to Bellina and she really likes the length of it. I actually wanted originally to cut it slightly shorter because I thought it would be right. But as we talked about, as the haircut got closer, the time to cut her hair got closer and closer and closer, I just felt that maybe for her she might just want to leave it longer. And the thing is, she's already said she wants me to cut it shorter next time, so that's great. I'm happy to do all that. So, you know, you can really have a play around with this now, and you can see the possibilities. Look, you know, you can do whatever you want to do with it. You know, and the parting you can change, you can throw it backwards, but it's the feeling and the texture. And once again, you see, because of the lights we're working in, where she's kind of been sitting there, or her hair's been sitting there for so long, it kind of flattens down, and it's almost fun to throw it over the other way, because you're just getting this really, remember what we said, out of bed, you know, messy, untidy, funky, and all of a sudden that starts taking on a whole different feel. Look at the textures in that. Can I just spin you to your left, please? Just so you can start to appreciate it. Look, just drop your chin. Look at that. Textures in there. And keep going around for me, doll. Keep going around, don't worry about that. Keep going around, doing a great job here. Drop your chin, drop your chin. I just want you to appreciate the textures in that, everybody. Right the way around to me now. There we go. Camera. So you're with me, you're just getting that lovely feel. And the problem is, you see, the average, you know, a lot of hairdressers kind of look at it and they kind of go, well, I quite like it, but see that bit, I don't like that bit. And then the hairdresser's hands come in and all of a sudden you just end up with a flat, boring nothing. So, you know, don't be afraid to take your hands out. It's a little bit like with these kind of hairstyles, and also with the thinking in the haircut, it's a bit like what you don't do that makes it work. And there you got it. So, a drastic change, but it's modern, and as I said, I don't think it says necessarily hairdresser.